Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we're here today to discuss V for Vendetta by Alan Moore, the acclaimed graphic novel. And Jose, you want to give us a introduction?
About V for
Uh, f-
Vendetta.
for you, yeah, for
Oh,
you,
okay,
yeah.
okay, okay, okay. Right, yeah, sure. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm Jose. I live in Spain, and I've got a little channel, Jose's Amazing Worlds, and I mostly talk about fantasy books, but I do read a fair amount of comics, and I've read V for Vendetta quite a few times. But the last time was a long time ago, so I did a reread for this discussion, and I've
Hmm.
also got my supersized copy here
Oh, nice.
in
Hardcover,
Spanish.
very nice.
Yeah, it's the classic front cover, but this one, ta-da-dan, it's signed by David Lloyd,
Nice.
by the artist. And then, just for you, Steve, just to make you jealous, this came off my wall,
I'm already jealous seeing the V for Vendetta.
which is a sketch by David Lloyd.
Wow. How did you
Uh,
get that? How did that happen?
I well, I met him at the London Comic Con, and first time I met him, he was there signing stuff, and he said, "Do you want a sketch for £7?" And I was like, "Nah, like who needs that?" And then when I got home, I was like, "That's I was so stupid, like £7, like what?" And then he was there again the following year, so then it's like, "Yeah, yeah, okay, can I have a sketch, please?" And I've got it framed and hanging there with some other sketches that I got over the years.
Wow, that's really
Really
cool.
nice guy.
Yeah.
He,
I thought you were gonna say you had Alan Moore sign it. I was just, that's a feat.
no, no, Alan Moore. He he became a recluse quite a few years ago. He doesn't want to have anything to do anymore with comics, really.
Mhm.
He did a big novel, Jerusalem,
Yeah.
um, but he's um, quite disparaging and quite sort of burned out with the whole comic industry. So I don't think he does any more public appearances like that.
Hmm. Have you read Jerusalem?
No, 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 no. I saw it in the bookstores, and it's a brick of a book.
Yeah, it's
And
big.
have you got it there?
Yeah, it
Have
was
you
on
read it?
sale. Yeah, it was on when we were talking about it one day, and it was on sale for just a few bucks. It was really really cheap, so it was like $3 when I picked it up.
All right,
Yeah,
but because the guy is so peculiar that I just don't know what he's going to be writing about. I don't know. You know, he could just go off on weird
yeah,
because he's kind of like a chaos magician, anarchist. He's a peculiar dude, and I'm not entirely sure if he's going to go off on that kind of line with a 800-page book. Like I don't know.
he's definitely strange. Yeah, he's a character for sure, and yeah, he's very odd. But it would be fun just to talk to him, just to pick his brain and hear the crazy ideas he has. I'm sure he has lots of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked last time about his pornographic comic book where he took all the fairy tale female characters like Wendy from Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, and I don't know some others, and he just had them talking about weird sexual fantasies and stuff.
Hmm.
But he came out and outright said, no, this is a pornographic comic. So then everyone was like, oh, we cannot get annoyed at this because he's outright said what it is. And he's done that. It's just that's weird stuff.
Yeah, he is weird. And Jeremy Fee is here. Hey, Jeremy. Good morning. I believe it's
Hey,
morning for
Jeremy.
you. So I'm curious to hear what you think of V for Vendetta because I've read it over the years. I've read it. I've read this one, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, but it had been a while for me too. So with the reread, it was a lot different this time. So what was your experience with that? When you reread, did you absorb this one differently now?
Um, I think with the benefit of hindsight and knowing a bit more about the story, I think the first time I read it, maybe I was freshly arrived to the UK or something like that. But I think to understand it, you need to contextualize when it was written, and I think it was very shortly after Margaret Thatcher going to power.
Hmm.
and what she, her policies and what she did to the country. So I think it's kind of like an anarchist's wet dream fantasy type thing, because for some people in the UK, Margaret Thatcher is literally the devil with horns and tail.
Hmm.
The way she dealt with the union strikes and the miners' strikes, and there are certain parts of Wales where to name Margaret Thatcher is to invoke Satan. So no, it's true, it's true.
I had no idea. Yeah, I didn't know that was that bad.
So I think it, the book was, or the comic was written, very shortly after she got to power, and this was all the concerns possibly, and on all the sort of extreme prejudices that someone that is very, I don't know if Alan Moore is left wing or is so far to the left, like we said before, he's an anarchist. So to have someone, very conservative, she was the Iron Maiden, so it was this kind of concern about what the UK may become
Hmm.
with Margaret Thatcher in power. So I think understanding sort of the political background of the UK at the time helps to frame the book.
Hmm. Interesting. I never knew that. I never knew it was Thatcher was seen that way. Chris is here. Hey, Jose and Chris and Steve,
Chris.
sir. I can only stay for a while, but definitely plan on checking out the whole stream later on.
Yeah, and Chris being from Northern Ireland, he'll probably um, sort of know better than me about what
Hmm.
I was just talking about.
Yeah, he does say
Um,
he's not wrong. Real vehemence towards state inhumane dealings with the common man and their issues. Hmm, interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that this was a like a reaction to that. But it is, in a way, it is timeless, right? I mean, it is something that um, can be read in any time period, and you can apply it towards lots of different points in time. I guess.
yeah, I mean, and obviously when did we had the Occupy Wall Street? Was that 2008 during the last crisis,
Mm-hmm.
2009?
2008. Yeah.
Yeah, when people were wearing the V masks, and it became an icon of, it's that sort of anarchist rebellion against the established system, and so on.
Mm.
So yeah, uh, the, the, I suspect it just remains, like I said, a pipe dream or a fantasy, because um, I don't know. In the end, the UK didn't become, well, maybe it did to a degree, what Alan Moore feared.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, there was that, and then the bit that I have forgotten totally about is the mystery of whether V is actually Evie's father or not.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. I don't know. I thought he is, but they leave it a little vague for the reader. I think just to see if kind of what direction we take it. But yeah, this one hit for me a lot differently this time. I don't know if just because of the last few years or the pandemic or what it. I think we're all in this weird place. Um, yeah, this one I don't know. It hit a little. It was a little different this time. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or just because of the current climate. Um, whichever side you're on, it seemed a little different. But there was a few things that I thought were funny in a. I wonder if this is intentional kind of way. Let me see if I can find my tab here. On one of the TV stations, when Evie at the very beginning is watching the news, let me see if I can find it. The some of the verbiage they use for it's on this version. I know it's on page 10.
Right.
Um, and I didn't know if this is on purpose or not, but let me see if I can find. I just had it. In the very corner, it says Mr. Crail went on to say that it is the duty of every man in this country to seize the initiative and make Britain great again. So I wondered. I don't. That was supposed to be ironic. I mean, that was like, wow, I never noticed that before. But now, you notice it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a little bit prescient, isn't it? I think Britain has got, it's a country dealing with its lost past as one of the biggest or the most recent empire in in history, isn't it? And it went after the independence of India. They went from being, like I said, one of the biggest empires in the world to now they're just this little island there that obviously has given so much to the world. But I think it's a country coming to terms with its new identity. And I lived there for 21 years, and it's particularly in London. It is strange when people like John Cleese, from Monty
Yeah.
Python,
Mhm.
when he says that London is not an English city anymore, and he gets a lot of um, ire and accusations at him. But it is true. When I lived there, no one in London is a third generation Londoner. Everyone comes from somewhere else, and it could either be from within the UK or literally from anywhere else in the world. So it truly is a cosmopolitan international city. You're not
Mhm.
really in England. Um, so I think there is an element of that uh, going on. And again, like in the comic, there is this sort of, maybe I just don't remember it well, but there is this sort of World War III or post almost quasi-apocalyptic event where large parts of the world are sort of destroyed or
Mhm.
whatever, and then England is like the last sort of bit of kind of civilized society left, or something along those
Mhm.
lines, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, and like you said, I think it's a fairly sort of timeless um, comic in the sense that whenever the next catastrophe happens, whatever it may be, the next big recession, you could read it again because it speaks to the average person, which is ultimately the one that always gets screwed when these things happen.
Hmm. Jeremy had a comment. Ronald Reagan had used the phrase "Make America Great Again" in his 1980 presidential campaign. I think V for Vendetta was first published around 1982. Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
although the publication history is a bit checkered because he started in a magazine first, and I think then the magazine folded, and then they picked it up again, and I think eventually it came out on DC. Did it? Um, so maybe, but yeah, that sort of makes sense because I think Margaret Thatcher came to power in '79,
Hmm.
so the timing sort of uh, fits around there.
Oh, I didn't know that, Jeremy. That's very interesting. Yeah, it struck me, and another thing that stood out to me too this time is the way that the news presents the news. Because in the past, you're old enough to remember the news wasn't delivered the way it is now. No matter what side you're on, it's it uses a different all the networks use a different techniques to get our attention and to get our eyeballs and our ears on whatever they want to report. So I thought that was almost like you know fortune telling a little bit because this is pretty close to the way news is presented now. That wasn't at least that I remember in the past.
Yeah. Um, uh, the thing is that, like I just said, I'm old enough. I'm old enough to remember when in Spain we only had two TV stations, and
Yeah.
they were both the government stations. So I think they tried to be as impartial as they could, even though the funding depending on the government. So whichever, well, although for a very large part we only had ever the same, it was always the same party in control. But I remember then when the private TV stations came along, and then there was a clear cut like, oh, if you are left leaning, you will watch that channel, and if you
Hmm.
are right leaning, you will watch that other channel, and, and that's when you started to have a bit more polarization. But yeah, definitely. Although
Hmm.
now these days, I mean, did you watch normal television still?
Very rarely. I don't
Yeah,
watch it.
exactly, exactly. I've got the TV in the living room. It's been sitting there for this is our fourth year in Spain, and I only bought the aerial cable last summer because it was the European Football Cup, and my son wanted to watch the matches, so I had to go down to the shop and get a cable to connect it to receive the terrestrial channels. We never watch
Hmm.
mainstream TV anymore. But now we're talking, and I'm sort of thinking about the comic. I just had the idea that maybe actually the the society that is presented in the comic is this kind of more communist dictatorship rather than
Hmm.
a far, because the all the different organisms of control are all like named after, you got the finger, the eye, the ears. This, it's almost giving the sense that society is one single organism and we're all part of this communal entity, which to me sort of resembles more a communist dictatorship rather than a
Hmm.
sort of right wing fascist capitalist dictatorship, maybe. Or that,
Yes. Yeah. It's the impression I got too.
the end of the day, dictatorship is a dictatorship. Doesn't matter which side of the equation you're on.
Yeah, and the book burning and not having access to music or entertainment and to control, to control people like that. That's we've seen that happen in the past. Um, but yeah, this one hit home a little bit more than it had before. It's interesting, and maybe it's just because we've been inundated with news and everything for the past couple of years, especially. But so yeah, I was curious to hear what your experience was this time.
Yeah. No, and definitely talking about it sort of makes you. That's the cool thing about these conversations, is that it forces you to think a bit more
Hmm.
about what you've read and then try to put into words for the first time what you've actually felt while reading it. Because I read it, and it's like, oh yeah, this, that, the other. But now I'm thinking about things for the first time that I hadn't thought about when reading it.
Hmm. And what did you think about the beginning? Because I think the beginning was a little overstuffed. There was a lot in the first, I don't know, little bit. And I did go back and look into it a little bit, but I think Alan Moore had made a there was another edition, that the edition you have may be the one that the deluxe, or that they made a few changes, but they didn't change the introduction or the beginning. They wanted to leave it as it was. So he admits that he has some problems with it. Did you notice that in the beginning this time?
Is that at the pub when the TV station is talking, and I no, I didn't have an issue with it. I think the whole the the whole book works really well. Maybe it's a bit slow. There's not many action pieces.
Hmm.
It's not that kind of book. Maybe, but no, for me the beginning was right there. Like the reference to the Oliver Cromwell failed attempt at blowing up the Houses of Parliament completely, you know, passed me by. And then, you know, after living in the UK, you learn about that and the song "Remember, Remember the 5th of November" and all that stuff. And it is a very British comic book,
Hmm.
um, and I think if anyone hasn't read it, that's important to bear in mind, because there are a lot of cultural references that may
Hmm.
pass you by.
What cultural references did you pick up on that someone like me may not?
But I don't know, like for me, when I read it, that whole remember the 5th of November is that rhyme. There's a little song about, like I said, the gunpowder plot. And if you don't know that part of British history, which I didn't know the first time I read the book, is whatever. It's just, you don't pick it up at all. And then I think when he takes Evie to his lab, well, this got a name, isn't it? The something of dreams, is it? Um,
Yeah, I forget what he calls it. He has a name for it.
yeah, the gallery of whatever. Some of the posters like relate to those sort of vaudeville theater entertainment shows from the 50s and stuff like that. Um, so this is little nuggets of sort of British culture that may
Hmm.
not translate necessarily into any other country, but it's just it's not fundamental to appreciate the story.
Hmm.
Although I suppose ultimately, spoiler here, he does succeed where Cromwell failed, he does eventually blow up the Houses of Parliament. So, there's a slight allegory there.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
I think that's it's good to know that it's because there was a few things that I felt like I missed, so it may just be because I missed the little cultural references.
I mean, it is a possibility, but like I said, it's not gonna take away from your enjoyment
Right.
of the story or your dislike for the story.
Yeah, I think it's pretty universal. I think the story can be it can be applied towards many different points in time. It's kind of timeless. But with Evie, have you seen the movie?
I did a few years ago. Yes.
I can see why they changed Evie from being because she was getting into prostitution as we meet her in the book and this one, so I can see that they changed that in the movie just to make it not as heavy, I guess.
Well, and also because in the book she's underage as well. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That'd be tough. Yeah.
exactly. Maybe just another thing that makes Alan more rage about the movie adaptations of it. Although I think it's probably a fairly, of all the adaptations of his comics, it's probably the more true one to. I don't see what the main issue is with the adaptation. Obviously, you're gonna have to change things when you go from one medium to another,
Right.
and you have to make concessions. But I don't know what the big concession is that makes Alan Moore despair so much about it. Because I'm assuming you've watched it more recently than I have.
Yeah, I think part of it is so I think has to do with the bigger picture in the comics industry because I think if I'm not mistaken, I think he sold like Watchmen and a few other properties to I think Vertigo is different. I think DC picked up Vertigo. So the way I
Vertigo
understand,
was a subsidiary of DC.
yeah. So I think the way that they purchased these properties still gets under his skin because he doesn't have full control over it. I think it's just because he doesn't have that control. I wonder how different he would feel about the adaptations, or if we would have ever gotten an adaptation of any of his work. But I wonder if it would have been different if he owned the rights and he had complete control because like indie comics or like Image wasn't a thing until the 90s. That was a whole new world
Mm.
in the 90s when creators owned their properties and they knew they had full control over them. So I wonder how different he would feel about adaptations now if he had control and he had a say in it because he really doesn't have any. I mean, they
Well,
can ask him, but he doesn't have any right to it, and it's his
no,
work.
you're right. Those contracts. I mean, and even to this day, because I've talked to artists that work for Image and Marvel, and basically, Image is what they do for the love of their job,
Hmm.
and Marvel is what they do to pay the bills. So there's a guy, Declan Shalvey, and Warren Ellis. They are three-fifths of the way into a series called Injection, but they had to stop because Declan Shalvey took up. I think it was Spider-Man because he needed the money, so he
Mm.
he gets paid by the page for Spider-Man, and then Injection is on hold on Image Comics, and it's been on hold for years.
Wow.
So presumably, they got paid whatever they got paid, and I think it was the case with Watchmen that because it never went out of print, he never got the rights back. So whenever the rights were about to expire, DC will come up with a new edition, and he never got control of that. So maybe with V for Vendetta, there's a similar story there because I don't think it's ever been out of print either.
No, I don't. I guess that's the blessing and the curse, right? To have a story that's so popular and celebrated that they keep printing them, so they
Yeah.
never go out of print. Jeremy Fee commented, "I'm a huge fan of the film. I think they did the material really well, highlighting the themes and bringing them to life. I agree with Jose. It's much better than most of the Alan Moore adaptations. I think between this one and Watchmen, I think Watchmen may be like if you're going page by page, panel by panel, it's pretty close. But so is this one. This one's pretty close too.
Yeah, and I found the movie very watchable. It was quite watchable.
Hmm.
Um, and
And
it was
Chris,
in, yeah,
Chris
sorry.
is gonna rewatch later. So thanks, Chris, for hanging out with us, and you have to join us next time. I'm sorry, Jose. Go ahead.
No, no, no. Because I wanna try to catch up your conversation with Chris from
Oh,
Friday. It was just too late for me. Um, I don't know what we were talking about. Yeah, the movie. I
hmm.
watched it, and I wasn't wowed. It's not that kind of movie, but I thought it did the job. You know, I didn't walk away like maybe I did with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, thinking,
Oh, yeah,
what is this?
yeah,
Even though the movie League of Gentlemen, if you forget about the comic, it is entertaining, but clearly it does miss the mark.
yeah, yeah. That was a rough one. Yeah, and Jeremy agrees that Watchmen was really good too.
Yeah. And what do you think of the artwork?
I'm gonna be blasphemous, but
Go on.
I didn't used to it didn't used to bother me, but now for some reason it kind of I don't know. It's okay. I mean, I know it's of the time, so
It's
I
not
try to
very
remember that.
pleasant, is it?
No, it's not very easy on the eyes. I mean, I can appreciate it, but it's really washed out. There's a lot of
Yeah.
panels that are just it seem really bright and don't have a lot of detail, but I try to remember that it's it's of the time. So
But it's actually his thing because I've got there, I think it's 4 volumes of uh, war stories by,
hmm.
come on, Garth
Garth
Ennis.
Ennis.
Yeah, that's right. And he did one or two of the early war stories. And the artwork stands out from everyone else because those lines that aren't clear, like you said, kind of the washed out colors and stuff like that is a very seemingly on purpose style
Hmm.
that is instantly recognizable, but it isn't very pleasant to look at. You're right.
And I think Gibbons' art in Watchmen, I think, is kind of the same, but it's close. It's similar to the artwork in V for Vendetta by Lloyd, but it's a little bit more. The lines are really solid lines.
They are
It doesn't
clear.
have that bleach look to it. So
No,
it is. I don't know if you want to say minimalistic, but it is. I guess compared to today's standard, is I guess you could say it's like minimalistic, but it seems a little bit more defined than this artwork.
it's a much more, Lloyd's is a much more traditional sort of clean look art. The funny one, if you haven't got it, is very American. Is Martha Washington by Frank Miller and Dave
Hmm.
Gibbons. It's a big, thick volume, and because they took so long to write it and draw it, no, Gibbons transition from physical art to digital art kind of halfway through the book.
Hmm.
So the early pages are hand drawn, kind of after the halfway point, it's all drawn on the computer, and you can really tell the difference there. And it's another big book written by Frank Miller, and it's again this dystopian future American society um, type thing.
Hmm. Interesting. I didn't know that. Wow. But yeah, it's. I mean, I like I said, it's still. It's not saying it's bad. It just has a different feel to it. But it like you said, it's probably is deliberate to give that kind of um, this like overpowering feeling when you read it. It has like this really bright, washed out feeling, like it's it's like intrusive. It feels like a little bit uncomfortable.
I find that it's a bit dark and a bit misty, isn't it? It's very sort of London foggy. It's
Oh yeah.
you are in that sort of November, December sort of London weather where the streets are wet, but it's not raining, and it's that constant. No, it's true. It's that constant
Yeah.
humidity and fog. Obviously, you don't get that in New Mexico,
No.
but I can tell you when it gets dark at 3:30 in the afternoon, it's you look out and the streets are you can see the tarmac is black, it's all wet and shiny, but
Hmm.
it's not raining, and it's that horrid English winter. and I
Wow.
think maybe it tries to capture that.
Yeah, we have a couple of comments to catch up on. Jeremy says League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was nothing like the comic. Yeah, it was pretty far off. Had potential too. Our friend Chatty is here. I'm listening, but I haven't read it, so I can't say much. It's worth reading. I think it's worth at least once. Eventually, I think it's worth a read. And London guy here can confirm. I never realized that it was that foggy because I've never been to London personally, so I'm just going off of what I see in movies and pictures and other things. But yeah, interesting that I didn't know that it was wet all the time like that.
In winter, yeah. I mean, part of the sort of historically, and that's sort of gone away. It's all the the infamous London smog was a mixture of the smoke from all the factories and the actual fog from the humidity and stuff. Now the factories are gone, but it's a massive city, and hardly ever can you see the stars at night.
Hmm.
Um, when you approach it from the distance, you can see the sort of orange glow
Yeah.
over London from all the pollution and the artificial light. And it's only when you sort of move away. But like any big city, like, I suppose like
Hmm.
LA, like New York, possibly like any city where millions of people live, um, it is quite polluted,
Hmm.
um, and it is like that. But yeah. That I'm remembering now. That sort of looking out the window, thinking it's raining because everything is wet, but it's not.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. And from your time living there, is this book regarded any differently than it is other places? You think, or is it the same?
oh, I I wouldn't know. I think it's one of those books that you're always going to find in one of those the all-time top 100 comic graphic novels of all time. Alan Moore is going to have his 3 or 4 books in there, isn't it? Before Vendetta, Watchmen, From Hell, maybe
Hmm.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but certainly the first three that I mentioned are going to be there. And to think that this was his first sort of long story, it's quite sort of quite an accomplishment. And he only went from strength to strength
Yeah.
um, after V for Vendetta.
Yeah. He's Alan Moore is very prolific. So what's your take on V as a character? That's what I say too.
Well, no. It's like I don't know. I think who who was it? Someone said it. Something about civil disobedience is your duty when I can't quite remember the quote, but I think you know what I'm
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
what
Oh,
I'm getting at. And like you said before, in the current times that we live and the things we have seen, you feel a certain sense of duty to civil disobedience. Um, so is he doing the right thing? That's that's the question. And I think also he touches upon it in the book that they don't. Oh wow, thank you, Joao.
mhm.
Um,
Thank you. Yeah.
that he isn't really proposing an alternative. All he's just proposing is to tear down the establishment so we can start again. But there's no alternative proposed. And sometimes with people like that's not my cup of tea. It's very easy to tell things. It's very easy to criticize, like we do in BookTube. It's very easy to turn down, but to offer a genuine improvement or an alternative is a lot harder, isn't it?
I guess that's I kind of saw it as this is the first step in changing things. It has to be burned down for us to get kind of we have to burn it all down to start from to rise from the ashes kind of thing is kind of like destroy everything.
Yeah, it's the sort of the criticism of I'll change it from the inside, isn't it? That
Yeah.
and then you become part of the machine. So it's just no, we gotta
Yeah.
break it down.
And Jeremy commented, "I feel like V has a sense of self awareness that is impressive, knowing he is obsessed with revenge."
Yeah, I mean, and he goes all the way, doesn't it? He goes all the way to, he commits to it. He gives his life to
Hmm.
to the cause. So, is he a hero or an anti-hero?
I don't know. I was going back and forth with this too. I kind of think he has to fall on the hero. Well, I mean, I guess it all depends on your perspective, but I think to 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 accomplish what he's accomplished, do the means justify the ends? I guess. I mean, is that you know, but without that, how many more people are going to suffer? How much more powerful will this um, government get? So, where does it end? If not him, then who?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. I don't know. I think yeah, I know. It is what it is. I don't know. You feel a certain degree of sympathy, and maybe sometimes it's better to not analyze it too much because
Yeah.
otherwise. But what about I mean, obviously it's a long time ago 40 years ago maybe that this was written, but the constant and I'm not a religious person, but when are we going to leave the Catholic Church alone? When I think that's the easy one to pick on. Like if you want to criticize organized religion, everyone goes for the Catholic Church because they're going to fight back.
Yeah.
So, but obviously, this was 40 years ago. So I think since then there's been a lot more. But is that a necessary element to the story?
Hmm. I don't know if it's necessary, but it added to it. I mean, but is it? Did it? It did. Yeah. I don't know. It's a good question. I never thought of that.
I mean, I suppose it's the whole a bit like in Animal Farm as well. Is that sort of the factic powers of the human, sort of the organizational, the government, and the spiritual joined together to preserve the status quo. So in that sense, the church is as much guilty or a party to the
Hmm.
situation as the government. Just like in Animal Farm, the crow that keeps promising the animals some sort of afterlife is just part of that. But I don't know. Why does everyone have to be a sexual deviant? Why does Because the guy with is it the weird porcelain dolls fetish,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. He collected them. Yeah.
why can't it just be your normal? Why does every dictator need to have some sort of weird kink? Can't we just have clean cut dictators? I don't know.
I think most people who are vehemently against whatever it may be are the ones who are that they hate what they are in a way. So they become that. So then they want to. Maybe it's shame or a sense of wanting to keep it secret and wanted to keep it to themselves. They don't want everyone to know that they have this weird kink, so no one else can have it because otherwise you'll go to the gulag or something.
Yeah.
Jeremy commented the treatment of Evie is very anti-hero, tricking her. Yeah, that's part of it. Is how far is too far to that you become a villain, or do the ends justify the means? How many people did he hurt to trick to get this accomplished? So it's I guess that's what every revolution or uprising faces. Those are the choices that you have to make. Or is this worth the do the ends justify the means?
Um. Oh, thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks, John. He said I didn't get a chance to read this, but I watched the movie a long time ago. It's been an interesting conversation. Thanks for hanging out, John.
I tell you what bet I never fully bought into, and I've got there's always an issue, and not just in this book, but whenever this kind of theme occurs, is the whole brainwashing thing. The way he kidnaps Evie, it's not necessarily overly kind to her, and similarly, over a very short span of time, he converts her and gets her to be this angel of retribution that you know picks up the mantle when he leaves her. And I don't know, did that come across as believable to you?
I think sometimes those things take a while to turn that corner and to become this extreme, whether it's one side or another. Um, I think that whole sequence of her finding the note and the rat and getting fed and getting her head shaved, all that was. I love that sequence of the movie, and it's just as good in the comic. So all that was done really well. I think if you go through something so traumatic, and because I think in the book it goes on for a while, right? I think it goes on for it does, I think it's only a few pages, but I think it goes on for a while in the timeline. But maybe I guess if you make enough of an impression and you you plant the note there for her and you kind of have her believing this whole and it does seem a little bit much that he could but one person could manage all these different things like the mannequins, the guards, and this whole production.
Yeah, I mean, my issue is not so much with the mechanics of it, but like, I don't know if you have. I've never tried to brainwash anyone, but I would have thought that it takes a fair amount of time, right? I don't know, or
I
maybe
think
you
it
just got,
depends, maybe.
or maybe you just got to know which buttons to press, and I'm
Yeah.
not that psychologically attuned. So,
Well, I
I don't-
haven't brainwashed anyone any recently, but
oh,
I think yeah, not recently, but yeah, I think it depends on kind of how far you go or what that person if that person's trained or if they're just a normal person. That I think most people would crack pretty quick. I mean, when you put enough pressure, I think most of us would. I'll put myself in that in that category too. I think most of us would crack pretty quick.
no, I would agree with you. Like, and this, no, but one thing is to and this, the severe strain of say torture, whether it's psychological or physical or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I'll at the first electric shock, I'll be, decrying whatever you want me to. But I think in this case, she has a full on. She internalizes everything that he is trying to do and takes it up as her own, and she finishes his mission, so to speak. So I think there's a full character change there that to me, I, I, I don't know anything, but may take a little bit longer than what is implied
Mm-hmm.
in the book. But like you said, I don't know. Maybe if you take someone that has already got enough preconditions or is predisposed and you press the right buttons, um, it's a lot quicker.
Yeah, I think most people would go pretty quick, but Joseph is here. Hey guys, have need to read the book. The movie was great. I think if you've seen the movie, you've pretty much read the book. I think it's pretty close. Charlie says brainwashing. This all sounds a bit like terrorism.
Well, that's exactly what he is, isn't it? He is a terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
He is a terrorist.
John said the one thing that's from the movie that stands out most to me, there is strength that comes from adversity, but V is a force. Evie through that against her will. Is V justified by doing that? I mean, I guess you weigh the few for the many. Is that worth? I think that's part of the question.
Yeah, and I suppose on the abstract, we can all maybe we all agree that the benefit of the many against the few is preferable. It's just that when you stop to talk about individuals, you get a bit more quizzy, isn't it? When you have to deal with individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talk about the sacrificing the few for the many, but it's not the same conversation when you are the few. When you are part of the few, it's not. It's a little different because it's
Yeah,
you
yeah,
are
yeah.
you're on the other side. So
We have that at school where, I mean, in my subject, the kids are grouped by ability in different classes, and then some kids, they, oh no, I need to be in the top set. I said, yeah, but there's no space. Yeah, but I need to be there. I said, well, you tell me who I need to take out of here so you can go in. And then things get a lot more complicated. So it is a bit like that, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. It's when you start to have to think all those things through. And John has an interesting question. uh, and who gets to decide what's best for the whole?
Mm. Mm. Well, clearly V did in the book,
He did, yeah.
but and again, I suppose is the other question: um, are people? I'm going to be a bit negative here, but are people educated enough to know what's best for them? And how many times I've only voted once in my life,
Hmm.
and my mum woke me up, gave me the envelope already sealed, and took me to the voting station. So I suspect who I voted for, but I cannot be 100% sure. But how many people, it's about easier for you guys in the US. You've only got two parties to choose from, so it's a little bit easier. But here, like who reads the manifesto of the program of each party? In any case, even if you read it, what guarantee have you got that they're actually going to execute it? So,
Hmm.
can people make rational decisions in with full knowledge of all the available information? And every day is, I think, is much more difficult because we have way more information to sieve through. So maybe we need to delegate a certain amount of our decision making process to people that know better and have that sort of
Hmm.
relationship of trust. But do we?
It's interesting you bring up the different parties and the different kind of the different groups, because here I think a lot of people get disenfranchised because there are only two parties that really have a chance. So I think people who don't feel like they fit in with one or the other, if they agree they're in the middle somewhere, then they feel disenfranchised and don't participate as much as they would if they had more options or if they had choices, more choices to make. So if they had different groups with different ideas, maybe that would be let them kind of get more involved and feel like they have someone who represents them and their interests, I guess. So it's interesting. Very interesting. Joseph says big government is always a bad thing. Chadi says, do we? Because I don't trust any of them, and they are all for it on their own." Yeah, that's the thing is, and that's another question: is will we ever not have dictatorships or governments like this that vie for power? Even what we don't know about. So it's interesting.
Yeah, but like I said before, for every decision that you have to make in your life, have you got the time and the resources to research it fully and make the best informed? I mean, and that's not practical. I think there's a bunch of
Mm.
economics that studies that we we come up with simplified rules to for our decision making because we wouldn't be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
When you bought your house, did you explore every possible lender out there, every possible condition? Are you 100%,
Yeah,
or,
you
or did you just
trust
go,
the trust the experts, I guess, right?
yeah, and do we?
Not
Certainly in
all.
government.
Yeah, depends on who the experts are. John says, as hard as it is to make good decisions for yourself, it's even harder to make decisions for others. That said, it's impossible for any one person to know everything that affects their life. And Charlie says, even when people go in with good intentions, the system makes them walk the line. Yeah. Wow. So, what were your thoughts on Evie? Is V Evie's dad? What do you fall on that?
Well, in my edition, it is prefaced by an article that came out in some magazine. So there's a prologue by, I think, written by Alan Moore, and he states in that prologue that V is not Evie's father,
Oh, okay.
but I think we all want V to be Evie's father.
Yeah, I don't. Would that make us feel better about the way he manipulates her
No, but
somehow?
it makes a better story. It's that connection between them, that link there, that emotional bond between them, and because I think at some point he asks, no, she asks him, and he says no, but is it because he feels like he's a different man after having gone through the fire and the
Mm.
torture in the concentration camp, and he sees himself as a different person to what he was? because we know Evie's father got taken to the concentration camps,
Yeah.
and there is too much mystery around him. So I think we are led to believe that, even if Alan Moore said he's not, I think we want him to be.
Maybe that version of him, like you said, wasn't because he is reborn. Yeah, he kind of is has a new like a rebirth at the camp. But I did wonder if okay if she's not his daughter, then why her? Seems like an
Uh,
odd choice to if that's your goal, or is he just looking for someone he can manipulate and bring into the fold?
yeah, but because then, sure, well, maybe in fitting with the whole theme of the book, because then, if, like you said, if she's not his daughter, he's literally picked a random girl that was about to get raped to turn into this tool that he needs. And maybe in keeping with the whole anarchist theme, personality, chaotic stuff, he's just picked a random girl. But then, how lucky are you that you've picked someone that would be pliable to your intent? So maybe the fact that he might have known her from being her father makes more sense, that he would know what she's like and what he needs to do to, I don't know.
Hmm. Interesting. Mason in the Dark is here. I think that regardless of any biological link, V is her father in every way that matters.
Well, sort of spiritually, I suppose,
Mm-hmm.
through the book, he's that sort of shaman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all really interesting because I always wondered why her, and that's but seems like if he's so dead set on this happening, then it's an odd choice, isn't it?
I I think so. I think so. That I don't buy the random element. I think whenever I've tried to write something, I need to justify to myself why some people are doing something or why they are there. Like why the why. I need to have it clear in my head, even though I may not put it in writing. And Alan Moore is famous for his super detailed scripts to the artists.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that he wouldn't have thought about about this question, that must vigilante randomly rescues damsel in distress, and then let's take it from there.
Or is Evie supposed to be us? That we all have it in us to accomplish these amazing things. Could that be the message he's trying to send? Like anyone with enough dedication, and if you are, any one of us could become something greater.
Under the right encouragement,
Mm.
prodding. So yeah, that is true as well. That is also true. So I suppose you're gonna make your choice for justification. So what do you make?
Yeah, that's I mean, kind of the power of the people kind of thing. Like any one of us could, it just takes one person. The whole thing. If you think you're insignificant, you're not. That kind of, maybe that's what he was going for. Something, maybe we can all see ourselves in her in some way. Then maybe that would be, we would be in similar situations if feeling helpless and just doing what we can to survive, and you can rise out of it. I don't know. I just,
No, no, no. You're absolutely right. Sometimes all you gotta do is believe that you can do something. Obviously, it can have disastrous consequences. Don't get me wrong. When I decided to run my first marathon, I did not know what I was doing. I just said, "Oh, I'm going to run a marathon." So I trained for a couple of years. I ran most of the marathon, and ended up in massive amounts of pain for the next couple of weeks. Um, but if I didn't believe that I could do it, I would never have done it. So, yeah, maybe all you need is someone to give you that spark that ignites you and
mm,
sets you on a certain path. So you're absolutely right there.
mm. Jeremy Fee, I agree with Mason. A symbolic father, a universal father figure. Jeremy, with with what Steve is saying,
Oh
we
dear.
are all Evie, all prostitutes in messed up societies, telling who we are just to survive. Yeah, lose sense of individuality. Mason said, "I always figured he was just saw innocence in her, some spark of hope that he knew he could stroke into flames of defiance." This was a comic that really woke up the critical thinking in me as a teen. Oh,
Yeah, and to be fair, I think all those are very good points that Mason and Jeremy have made. These all very very valid points. And to this last um, issue raised by Joao, I don't think very many comics before V for Vendetta had that sort of deep level of um, sort of social critique. Maybe I'm trying to think, but I don't think certainly in the US. The US I think was very much stuck in the Marvel DC kind of era, and DC had become very campy in the 70s with Batman and stuff like that. Um, I think Europe always had a bit more of a weird, sort of more socially conscious air to it. But I think for sure, and definitely, Alan Moore elevated the medium. I think he did things that no one had done before.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I think he. I think this. We talked about Watchmen previously, and now we're talking about V for Vendetta. But I think starting to kind of put in perspective how much Alan Moore influenced the art form of comics, he changed the landscape. Because I think before there was probably social commentary if you look deep enough, but it wasn't as overt. I'm sure nearly as much as Alan Moore's books,
Mm.
like this and Watchmen. Mason mentions that we are all prostitutes thing is a great point, Jeremy. I like that.
I'm not comfortable with that.
Hey, what I do on my weekends is my business.
Yeah, well, you're gonna make ends meet, right?
Got to support my book habit somehow, right?
That is very true. No, well, it's a trade. It's a trade, isn't it? We just trading a skill set. Um, but so, because I think you had the intention of reading From Hell next. You were on a bit of an Alan Moore
Mm-hmm.
spree. That is a much deeper read. I only read it once, and I've
Hmm.
got it there on the shelf. But the size of it does scare me a little bit. Um, no, because it'll take me. I'll have to sit down and read it properly, continuously. Um, and I've got the other books going on. But I think I do think From Hell is kind of next level
Hmm.
from Watchmen and V for Vendetta. Have you read it already?
I have not. It's always been on my list, so I'm excited to read it.
Right. Well, let me know when you decide to do that, and I'll try to jump on board with that
Yeah,
because it's. Have you watched the movie?
I haven't.
Ah, okay.
They're going in totally fresh. Yeah,
Because I think certainly the movie does miss a lot of what goes on there.
yeah.
So,
Not a huge Johnny Depp fan. That's a whole other thing. But
oh well, no, is no Johnny. I don't think
isn't he
Johnny
in that
Depp.
movie? Oh, he's not. I
No,
thought he was. What am I thinking?
I think you think it was Sleepy Hollow. Maybe it's
Maybe
from.
that's what I'm thinking.
I don't think Johnny Depp is there. It's
Oh yeah, he is. Johnny Depp and
yeah.
Heather Graham and a bunch of other people I don't recognize.
Ah, that puts a spanner in the works then.
Hmm. Yeah, directed by Albert Hughes.
Mm, okay. No, I think definitely the comic is way more philosophically deeper than the movie. I think they took the main narrative of the comic and they turned that into the movie, and
Oh,
they
okay.
and they missed out a lot of the kind of inner dialogue and things like that. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's a conversation for another day.
yeah. Looking for. Yeah, we'll set a time for that, of course. And chatting. Mason commented, "If I ever get my site back, I will for sure buy myself a copy. I was always gutted I couldn't read the graphic novel." Well, hope you're able to read it. Hope you're able to read it. Rooting for you.
Yeah.
So, Jose,
Um,
what's kind of your thoughts on this one overall? What were your impressions?
um, I think it's a little bit cliched, but if I contextualize it historically and frame it there, um, I think I'll give it a higher rating. I will hold that on higher regard. I think anyone that doesn't really understand what we've talked about, the circumstances it came out, and so on, you know, like I said, criticizing the church, like any old Dick and Tom and Harry does it these days. So, um, sexual deviance, it's just it's an everyday thing, isn't it? We just accept that as well. So some things may feel a little bit trite, but this is 40 years ago, and when you take that into account, um, and I think it was a very pivotal work, not necessarily Moore's best, but it did something to comics, and for that, I am fond of it. I
Hmm.
am very fond of it.
Yeah. Um, this read, I think I'm a little bit burnt out on dystopian stories and governments and oppressive governments, and because it's everywhere now. So I think this time was a little different for me, but it is a timeless. But I think it's worth reading. I think it's worth a read for everyone to at least read it once, just to experience it. But
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of these things that they've got a reputation, isn't it? But it's not overhyped.
mhm.
Yeah, or any hype that it may have, and any recognition that it has, I think is merited
Yeah,
and deserved. So absolutely.
yeah, cool. Yeah, I think we could probably talk about this one all day if we wanted to. But
Yeah, no, no, no.
yeah, but no, I'm looking forward to reading From Hell, and we'll come up with the time on the forum to meet up for that. We're in no hurry, so we can wait another month or so or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, have you got the other one, Extraordinary Gentleman? Is that an intention to read that as well?
Sure. Yeah, we can do four more books, and then
Do a more.
we can. Another one of Moore's books that I've wanted to read that I never have is his Swamp Thing run. I've never read it, but
Ah, yes, I've got it there, and that's it's interesting. I did a review of the whole series
mhm.
in my channel, and it does have kind of different. Every book does a different thing, and it's really interesting. It's really interesting. It was his first foray into DC Comics, so they gave him Swamp Thing, very minor character, and what he did with it was very interesting.
Because the character Swamp Thing doesn't interest me at all, but I hear so much about his run that I have to. I want to read it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll just tell you, like, what happened was Swamp Thing was this kind of scientist that has got this terrible accident and becomes the Swamp Thing, and he's trying to recover his humanity. But then what happens is that's a very limited kind of scope for the character, because if he ever recovers his humanity, he's done. And how long can you keep that going, right?
Hmm.
So then what Alan Moore did is that he took the Swamp Thing and turned it into a kind of green elemental that think he was human, but he's not. And
Hmm.
when he recognizes that he never was human, he's like, okay, what can I do now? Because this is now it's open field. Now I don't have to get him to recover his humanity. That's not the issue anymore. Now I can go places with this. I can do whatever I want. And he literally does. He literally goes to outer space, hell, um, everything. He does everything with it. So I think that's what made it very, very interesting.
Huh. Ah, I didn't never knew that. Interesting. I don't know about going to outer space. That's one thing, but we'll see. We'll see
Yeah,
how
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
works
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's probably my least favorite part of it. I like my superheroes uh, grounded on Earth. I think the second aliens start coming around, I do switch off.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jeremy says more, more. Yep.
More,
And
more, more.
Jeremy, you know, there's a function on StreamYard that you can just have your image. You don't have to appear on camera. So you can join us for From Hell, whatever that is, next
Yeah,
month or so. Yeah.
and I wanted to see if I could get Jeremy to join me for a chat at some point. So, but I'll message him directly.
Yeah. Gonna have to corral him. He's tough to get to. I've been inviting him for a while. He's
Is he,
resisting.
is he reluctant
Yeah. We'll get him one of these days.
for
But cool.
sure?
So, Jose, if people want to get in touch with you, where's the best place to find you?
Well, now that I've learned about the algorithm, I've renamed the channel, so it's Horses Amazing Worlds, and now it comes up instantly on YouTube when you type that. So I need to go through a slight process of rebranding. I don't know when I'm going to have time to do that, but that's going to happen. So yeah, I'm there, and then Instagram is the same thing. I think it's Jose underscore amazing underscore worlds, and I am there, although not that active. I think YouTube is the place.
Yeah. Awesome. I'll leave the link to your channel down below. And of course, thanks everyone for hanging out with us and ch- chatting with us in the chat. Always appreciate it. And anyone's welcome to join on any of these. I think we'll be doing From Hell maybe next month sometime. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Although we're running into Christmas, and then that's a bit trickier. So I'm traveling to the UK and so on. But maybe early January could be good.
Sure. Yeah. I'm open for whatever. Yeah. No hurry.
Okay, we'll be in touch on the forums. Excellent.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us. And yeah, check out Jose's channel. It's great stuff.
Muito obrigado.
Yeah. And we'll talk to everyone soon.
Take care.